Say not thousands.
Lucas?
Are there any plans to hold the Lincoln Strike Group any longer than currently planned?
We're not going to discuss any operational details at this time.
Barbara?
For either of you, does this now represent a full U.S. commitment to defend Saudi Arabia and to defend the oil infrastructure of Saudi Arabia? And for General Dunford in particular, what's your concern about their ability, the Iranian ability, to launch swarms of drones at very great distances without any air defense detection of this incoming attack?
So what I'd say, Barbara, in terms of what we're doing is we're contributing to Saudi Arabia's defense. We would be looking, as the Secretary said, for other international partners to also contribute to Saudi Arabia's defense. And with regard to dealing with a specific threat like you just spoke about, no single system is going to be able to defend against a threat like that, but a layered system of defensive capabilities would mitigate the risk of swarms of drones or other attacks that may come from Iran.
I want to double down on the Chairman's comments two ways. First of all, I agree. What we would be deploying to the theater would be what would be necessary to help support and contribute to the kingdom's defenses. And at the same time, we're calling on many other countries who would also have these capabilities to do two things. First of all, stand up and condemn these attacks. And secondly, look to also contribute defensive capabilities so we could defend those things that I outlined in my remarks, whether it's the infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, and then the broader issues with regard to freedom of the seas, navigation in the Strait, and then the international rules and norms that Iran is clearly violating.
Courtney?
So should we take this as this is the president's decision about the response to the attack in Saudi Arabia, and there's not a kinetic response that we should expect from the United States?
This is the first step we're taking with regard to responding to these attacks, and again, for the reasons I outlined, to help bolster the defenses of Saudi Arabia and provide equipment to both the Saudis and UAE. The second, to ensure the free flow of commerce through the Strait. And third, to ensure we protect and defend the international rules-based order and try and convince the Iranians to get back on a diplomatic path.
But the deployment of these kinds of assets can often take days and weeks. Should we expect any other kind of more immediate response from the United States specifically?
The United States has a robust presence in the Gulf already. We bolstered it further in May. So we feel quite quite confident in terms of our own defensive posture and our ability to do anything else as necessary. But that's not where we are right now. Right now we're focused on helping the Saudis improve their defenses of that infrastructure.
All right, last question, Nancy.
Mr. Secretary, Chairman Dunford, you've mentioned that the international community should get involved, but some allies have questioned whether the attacks were in fact launched in Iran. I was wondering if you could give us any sense on whether you will declassify any evidence that shows that those strikes were launched from Iran, and also if you could give us a sense of timeline in terms of when these deployments could start.
So I'll say a few things. First of all, the United States is on the ground in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabians are leading this investigation, and we will keep them in the lead with regard to the forensics. So we need to let that play out and let the evidence play out. With regard to the partners and allies, first of all, I would commend Secretary Pompeo. He's been on the phone and on the road the past few days, speaking to numerous allies and partners about this incident. And regardless of where you think it came from, the fact is the Saudis were attacked by both drones and cruise missiles and are still vulnerable to attack. So asking allies and partners to contribute resources to help them defend themselves and to defend those things I spoke about, I don't think it's too much of an ask given the situation.
And we'll work the details, Nancy, over the weekend, and I'll come back to the Secretary early next week with some specific recommendations.
Or you can confirm that the strike was launched from Southwest
Thank
Iran?
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.